Okay, so a couple of key things to remember, tips and tricks if you like. When you're setting your page up, just if you use about a hand up on the paper, as you can see that I've got here, if your pen starts here, then you know you're always going to have room at the top. Whereas if you put your hand down to look, obviously what we don't want to do is have the curve way down here if you can help it, because it just makes it more difficult to explain about the artisan piece. So generally if you put about a hand thereabouts, you come across, down, and remember we're not stopping here and going across, because we've got, this is the break-even point. So remember the curve's got to go up, past, and then across and up, okay? So the next thing to do is once you've gone through and got your curve, so let's have another go. So we'll come across here, we'll go down, up, okay? And then you can draw the split point and the devil's toilet like that. The next thing you're going to need to do is to write the title. So you will have noticed that I wrote growth, better spell it correctly, growth fundamentals framework. Okay, and when you're writing this, what you'll notice is that your brain will be screaming at you because you've slowed everything down and people are watching you write. And if you've got terrible handwriting where you can't spell so good, like me, then you can get self-conscious. Slow down and stay with it. The reason why you're taking time to write the frame is that we want this bit here to drop in their mind. But when we've drawn the curve, the first thing they're doing is thinking, what is that? Have I seen that before? So now their brain is spinning, doing overtime. We need it to slow down so we can get them in tune with us. So when we write the title, we then make it, well, the reason we have it called it the Growth Fundamentals Framework is that the fundamentals need to be present or else you're going to struggle. And we want them to be thinking, ooh, what are those fundamentals? So this is actually a really critical piece, and it's something that many people avoid because they feel embarrassed. So stay with it, practice it in there. It's really important. It's about getting focused attention. It's what we call controlling the reveal. Okay, the next thing is you will have noticed that when I did the stages, like for example, I wrote design, launch, break even, right? So what you'll notice is I go chunk, chunk, chunk. So I write all three and then I speak to that point. If you try to just do one at a time, you increase the chances of getting lost, confused, or whatever. So what I do is, remember the 3x3 is really easy to remember. So if I go design, launch, break even, then I know, okay, well, that's going to be lifestyle, that's going to be leverage, that's going to be reach. So that's easy. So I do another 3, explain, 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 and then another 3, and explain, explain, explain. Now, the key thing about this here, and this is what you will have noticed from the demonstration I provided, I didn't have anybody role-playing with me. So you'll notice that I gave quite complete explanations at each stage. When you're with your client, if, for example, you know they're at Lifestyle Up, you would make the conversation around design, launch, break even really short and brief. Don't leave them out, but don't spend a lot of time because you know that's not really the bit that your client's focused on. The other thing that I'd tell you is you have to think mentally of living the story rather than remembering the words. So think what it would be like to be the business owner sitting and designing a business. Think what it would be like if you opened a business, maybe a hobby or a passion that you have. If you were opening that business, what would that be like as you're opening? The excitement and the fear that goes with it. Think what it would be like just to try and get that business to break even. So and then the description will come through the observation of what's happening to that business owner. Whereas if you just try to remember all the technical stuff that goes per piece, two things will happen. One, you'll forget it. And the second is you'll break the connection with your client. This is about creating an emotional position. We want them to understand that you have empathy for them, that you have credibility, that you understand them, but it's really about creating alignment. So if it's just dry, if it's a fact-filled delivery of pieces, if there's no story, that's why we always create dissociation. So you'll notice that I talked about Bob the chocolate maker, right? And one of the key things you'll learn whenever we're doing a template is if you were to say to them, so this is you starting design, and this is you in launch, and this is you in break even, immediately what happens is we're inviting the frontal cortex to start kicking off on the client's brain, and they're immediately going into judgment and assessment. And they're going to find fault because that's what that part of the brain's trying to do. We want to quiet that part of the brain down, and we want to appeal to their amygdala. We want the hippocampus and amygdala. We want memories and emotion. We want them to start to create an emotional attachment. That's what we're doing with the positioning. So when we create dissociation by putting it outside their business, effectively we get the concept down, then we relate it to them. So it's really important that you don't start out. And so what you'll find is that if you mention the name of the business owner straight ahead, it'll keep you in what we call third person reference. If you don't do that, you'll get stuck in. Before you know it, you'll be using the word you. We really want to try and avoid that. So the big storytellers there, live the story, don't tell the words. If you get lost, think about what it would be like if we're talking about leverage. Think about what it would be like to hire lots of staff and you're trying to tell them what to do. And if you forget the delegation, replication, quantification, don't worry about it. It's what we're really trying to get across is that emotional connection of what it's like when you're trying to scale up and you've got lots of people and new systems and all sorts of stuff going on. The extra technical details you can fill in later. So it's the emotional story we want to get across. So live the story. Don't get sort of bogged down with it. If you get anything out of order, like if you start talking about the devil's toilet or the split point and it's out of order, don't worry about it. Keep going. And then the last part, which is really important, is you'll notice one of the critical messages we want to get across is this bit here. Remember when we put a big line through and we said artisan and then businessman? And I know you might say, oh, hang on, what if it's a female? That's sexist. We're trying to create a rhythm or a rhyme, artisan, businessman, so that it sticks in their head. And what we're trying to do is get across the message, hey, you could be super successful up here, but that doesn't guarantee that you won't need our help going forward. So it's really crucial that we get that point across because that's a big part about positioning what you're planning to do. So again, like anything new, we have to practice. So I would suggest you'd want to do this at least 10 times before you show it to your first customer. Show it to your wife, your husband, your neighbor's dog, wherever you can get it. Just yell it out the side of the window whether you're driving to work in the bus, whatever works for you. Practice, and then go have some fun. Remember, when I went through my demonstration, we weren't asking questions. So whilst I did it in about 11 minutes, it's probably going to take you a good 35, 40 minutes, 45 minutes when you're sitting in a cafe. And one of the most powerful things, you might be thinking, hey, could I just have it printed off and just talk to it? You could, but then your clients are going to get what we call map shock, meaning they won't know where to look. So by drawing it, we create the focus. We only reveal these pieces, so we're maintaining the focus. The other key thing is that by you controlling the reveal, they create an association to the framework, to your knowledge of it. It's about positioning, empathy, understanding, credibility, competency, all those things are in there. So take your time, practice it. Later on, you might find ways to speed it up by having something pre-printed, but to get started, if you can't draw this on the back of a napkin, you're not ready to go. So focus on that. That's going to be the number one sort of biggest driver to help secure advisory work for you going forward. Have fun with it.